Hi everyone, I'm just having a play today and I thought I'll turn the camera on, and if it works, wonderful, I will show you what I make with it, and if it doesn't, I'll delete it. I've just got some single-sided digital, so I've got 4 of those, and a little bit of music paper, a few sheets of, I think I've got 3 sheets of just coloured paper in softer colours. With the digitals, I've folded 2 of them with the image on the outside and 2 of them with the image on the inside. And they're all, in this case, all A4 except the music paper, which is the same height but a lot longer, so I could fold that in. So I'm just going to have a play and see if this works. So all I'm using is, I've got a ruler and a blade. I've got a little bit of scrap cardboard I've made some marks on, and a little bit of glue. So I've made a bit of a template up, and hopefully this will work. So all we need is grab the scoreboard out. I'm just going to turn them all, so this is the open side here, so I want to turn them all around the other way so that the folded side is going to go onto the scoreboard. And I'm just going to score, make sure it's folded, make sure the paper is folded in half correctly, and I've opened it up and creased it with burnished it with that tool both ways so it's well creased. So I just want to make sure it's sitting square, and I'm going to score it at 3/8 of an inch, and I'll just do that for each one. So again, the open side is over here, the folded side, and 3/8 of an inch. Okay, now I've just got a couple of paper clips. I'm going to take 2 pages at a time and just clip them together. So I don't want them to move for this stage. And I've just got a bit of scrap cardboard, and hopefully you can see there's markings there. Actually, what I'll do is, while I've got my scoreboard out, I do need to see that line. Hang on, I'm just going to also score that at 3/8 of an inch, so I've got that line to work to. So now that's on the board. And now I can see that line. I'm going to cut from that scored line. I'm going to cut, just make sure everything's nice and straight. I'm going to cut through all the layers. Just flip up and check I've got them. Make sure everything stays put. Again, from that 3/8 of an inch scored line. So you can see then that I've got, if I fold this up, you can see so each piece of paper, now I've just used that little template with the lines marked, and I've cut the slots just from the 3/8 of an inch score mark through. So when you open the page up, you've got these little slits cut in the paper. And then what I did next is I've opened it up, and I'm just pushing from the back. I'm just pushing that middle section through, so the first little section through and the other 2 sections down, and I'll do that on those middle 2 flaps, so that when I join my paper up, Just lining the top corners up and just folding that through so that you can see there I've got these little bits folded in and the other bits folded out. And then on the next piece I'm going to do the opposite. So these top tab, I'm going to fold the top tab in, the middle tab, just a bit tricky to get it started at first, and the bottom tab in. Again, just get your corners lined up to keep everything square. So there's your first page, and I've got the 3 tabs sticking out, and on the second page I've got the 2 tabs sticking out, and you can see that they just line up. So we'll keep doing that in order. So with the next one I need it to be the same as this first one here, where I leave the top tab out and I push this middle section in, the 2 middle sections in. So I've lined the 2 corners up and held that paper in position, and then just lifted it up and popped the 2 ends in. Okay, so here's the first page. The second page is like that. The third page again has the top tab sticking out. This fourth page will have the top tab will pop in, so this is already lined up, so the top tab will pop in. So alternating top tab out, top tab in, top tab out, top tab in, and just go all the way through. So once I've cut all the papers, I've then gone through and I've popped out or in tabs. So if I pop these ones out, I'll show you. That's how the page started. So on the first page, if we leave the top tab out and then pop the middle, the next tab in, next tab out, next tab in. So you've got the top tab out and 2 sections that are popped in. And then the next page you do the opposite. You leave the top tag and you pop it in, and then you leave the next 2 tabs out, and you can see it line up, and you just continue doing that. So if you look at the pages in order, you've got top tab out, top tab in, top tab out, top tab in, top tab out, top tab in, top tab out, and here's the last one, top tab in. So now that you've got your tabs all organized, I'm going to take this top page with the tab out, and I'm squaring off these corners, so the open parts of the journal are all squared off. I'm just going to clip that into place to hold it. And then what I want on this one is I want this top tab to wrap around, if I turn that over, to wrap around. The same with the middle tab. I'm just sort of wrapping it around and creasing it. And with the bottom tab. And then I'm just going to grab a little bit of glue. So I'm making sure everything, just keep that out of the way. I'm making sure everything on the open side of the pages is nicely lined up. And then I'm just going to glue these 3 tabs. It's a warm day today, my glue is oozing out the top. So now you've got these 2 tabs sticking out, and if I open the journal up, you've got 2 tabs sitting up in here, and that's the first page, and then the second page is joined on here, And then all I need to do now is just to sort of burnish that into position. Fold it over so that everything sits nice and flat. And do that each time you add a page. Just go through and so long as you're keeping these sides fairly lined up, you should be good. Okay, so the next page, turn it back the right way, here's the journal. So the next page is going to have the 2 tabs out. Just make sure your paper's the right way up. And again, I'm just going to clip them, lining up the open edge. And this time I'm going to fold these middle tabs around. So the 2nd and the 4th tab. And again, just come through and burnish everything so that it's nice and flat. Then the next page sits on. This one's longer, and what I'm just going to do is I'm lining it up on the other edge just to make sure that it's square. Lost my paper clip. There it is. So I joined 2 tabs last time, so this time it will be 3 tabs. And then glue down those 3. And the next join will be using 2 tabs. So just alternate between 3 tabs, 2 tabs. So now that that's in place, what I might do is fold this in. I'm up to 2 tabs. So with this one, there's just a little bit of rub there. I might have been slightly off when I cut that line. So I'm just going to cut a little sliver out, just so that that folds nicely. And the same on that one. So I'm just going to go through and burnish everything. You can feel whether it's lying flat or not. Okay, so here's the book put together. For the last 2 flaps that were left, I could continue adding pages if I wanted to. I've just folded them in for the moment because it's the first time I've tried this. And I just wanted to show you some ideas of what to do with it. Firstly, it opens up on every page and lays beautifully flat. So the whole journal lays nice and flat, and you just get to see some of the tabs on some of the pages. Other pages you don't see any tabs. So what to do with the tabs? Well, here's an envelope that I've made with 6x6 paper, and both sides of it are lovely. It's one of the envelopes with a little bit of a gusset in the side. So something like that, you could add glue to that tab and glue that envelope there in the gusset. And then that becomes something just flips over, and you get to see both sides of the envelope, and it's going to be fully functional in the journal. So that's one nice thing that you can do, because you've got the tabs, you've got that double-sided element. If you've got little pretty papers, these would be perfect just to glue into place. Glue both of those onto the tab so it becomes something that just part of the page flips over. And if you've got, these are smaller ones, you could do that as a double-sided thing. You could glue to either side of the tab and have that as a lovely little flip, something like that. And whether it's on the 2 tabs or the 3 tabs, if it's the 3 tabs, you've got the option of just sort of gluing both sides together and making that could easily be a pocket. Now that these tabs are in place, for example, if you wanted to use that and line it up at the top and that's too big, you could just get your scissors and cut on that angle to hide that extra little bit if you've got something that doesn't quite fit. So that would make a really nice little flipping pocket. I've got lots of little paper pads like this where you've got 2 of each print. Again, you could just tear those out and make those either just flip out pages or pockets. I've got Project Life cards that might look nice. So where there's the 2 tabs, you could have these glued in, and then when you close the journal, these extra bits could become tabs. So you could do that if you wanted to. I've got just these index cards, so they could just glue on and be sitting in there, or you could have them sort of folded over and pop a little page tab on them, and that could be something extra in the journal. And again, these are Project Life cards, and you could have one of those just sort of glued in as something a little bit different, so that would be great. Sometimes when you make elements like this is one of those fold out cards, this might glue onto those 2 tabs there like that, and so it could fold out like that way, and when it's flipped over that way you see the back of it. So something like that could easily stick onto the tabs. Even just something as simple as a pretty little tag that could go onto it, you could just do that. And on the one with the 2 on it, you could have 2 little tags just to decorate the journal. You could also do them double-sided again if you wanted to. These are some of the postcards from the kit. So these papers are all from the Vintage Rose Mega Kit. So these are a couple of the postcards. And again, you could glue them in just separately like that, round them corners, decorate them a bit. Or you could put them back to back and glue 3 sides of them. 1, 2, 3, and they could be pockets, floating pockets. You could have a couple of those in the book. This is just a bit of cut off paper that I use for something else. So you could just simply have an extra little bit of paper tipped in there like that, or that could fold over and become a double-sided, take a little notch out, and that could be a pocket as well. So any of your scrap paper would work. Then when there's the 3 layered one, the 3 tags, you could always get, these are just little pieces of paper that have come in a kit, so you could always glue them on and layer them so that they became a layered flip page, and once they're glued in, that would work really nicely. Even I've got pads of things like this that are the right height, so you could easily take one of these and just glue that in loosely so that you've got different width pages in the journal. And then I've got larger papers here, so go back to one of the double ones. Where was I? Back here. So this could be just a long skinny piece, or you could again use 2 of the tabs and fold that in half, and again make that a really floating pocket. So I'm going to have a bit of a go at decorating mine, and I'll show you what I come up with when I'm finished and see what you think. Here's the journal with some decorations added. The last two tabs I've just left open. If you were finished with the journal, you could just simply glue those down, or you could attach a back cover just as a single sheet to those, and you can see that it looks nice and tidy. It opens and sits nice and flat on any of the pages, so even though I've added decorations, it just sits nice and flat. So I'll show you what I ended up doing. Just a bit of scrap paper with a notch cut out of it and a couple of things tucked in there. I added those 2 envelopes, and they just, you can see both sides of them, and they fit nicely there. I just added a little tip in with a bit of ledger paper just as an extra page. A lot of the journal needs more work on it, but I just wanted to show you the progress. I've just added, that was that piece of scrap paper, and I've just put edges on it and a bit of fabric as a tab. And just as an idea, that's just a strip of scrap paper to cover where you've got the tabs. If you don't want them showing, you can just add a decorative item to cover that. This is quite a bulky piece, and you can still see the journal lays flat, so this is one of those flip ups, and you've got the journaling space there, and then the tabs just keep that in place. So that's quite a bulky piece, and still the journal sits nice and flat. That's one of the Project Life cards just glued in. The music paper, I just added a little tab to it, and then that was one of those single small pieces of paper just glued on to the tabs. That's 2 of the postcards, and I just rounded the corners and inked them. And of course you could decorate the back. I haven't done that yet. This was the little fold out flippable piece, and that's quite a bulky item. You can see that's quite bulky, but even so, the journal just still sits nice and flat with that in there. These are just 2 of the index cards that I've folded over and added a tab to one of the centre pages. And that again is one of the single sheets of paper. And then if you have one of these little tab pieces like this, and you don't want to use it, you can just simply add some glue and glue that to either side. So I just left that to show you. And then, as I said, the final page, you could add a back cover that's a thicker card, or continue building the journal. I'd like to sort of keep going on it just to see how big it can get. But I'm really happy with how neat and tidy it is, and how simple it is, and the fact that there's no sewing involved, I think, is a real bonus. So I hope you'll have a go at doing that, even just as a smaller book, and have a play with, I did the little cuts in at 3/8 of an inch. You could make that bigger if you wanted, and you wouldn't necessarily have to do the 4 cuts to give you the 5 tabs. You could play around with that and see what works for you. Thanks so much for watching.